a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You ready?
Yes.
You ready to do this?
Yeah.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Hello and welcome everyone to the show. I have a very special guest today too, actually, if we're being technical. This is the first of what I hope to be many more casual Star Wars book question and answer episodes. So because he was close by, I invited a very special friend of the show onto the show for the first and not the last time. Would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Hello there, listeners. My name is Devore, and I am the host of A Larger View of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. And yes, I am a very special friend of the show. Having named the show.
You did name the show, and also you're married to me.
Correct.
We also have, I should introduce another guest, first-time guest to the show, once again, not the last time. This guest has made so many cameos on so many Star Wars podcasts. Today we have our dog, who doesn't understand what podcasts are, but has just always wanted to be on one. Would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
She is currently licking my leg.
Does that count?
I guess
Does
so.
that count as an introduction? Oh, okay. So what we're going to be doing for this episode is just answering a bunch of questions, mostly your questions, but also like questions we might come up with for each other along the way. Speaking of, I do have a question for you to start. What was the first Star Wars book that you read?
Okay.
Do you remember?
So I do kind of remember. So I guess it kind of depends on how you define a Star Wars book. Because I would say probably the first Star Wars books would be the visual dictionaries that came out. Those were a big part of particularly my childhood fandom was having both the visual dictionaries for the OT and the prequels, and then also the Incredible Cross Sections. That was the vehicle analog to the visual dictionaries. So those are ones where I was just sitting, leafing through, looking at all the little specs or reading all the little character details, depending on which one I was looking at. I mean, in terms of a Star Wars book, like a fictional story that was being told, I think it is one of the... I'm blanking. I don't know why it was. I think in 7th grade, I read one of the... Are they called the Jedi Quest? There's a series of Obi-Wan and Anakin in between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
I have not read those, but I know what you're talking about. That might be what they're called?
Yeah, I think they are. I don't know what they would fall under. If they are young reader or maybe middle grade is probably what they would classify as. But I just had one of them that I don't even know how I got it, why I picked that one. But I do remember distinctly reading that one as a little middle schooler me.
Do you still have it?
I do. It's somewhere here, I think.
Oh, it is? Oh, that's cool. I like that. Izzy, thank you for providing background noise. Always appreciate you. Your first guest spot on a podcast. How do you feel?
She is trying to chew her bone on Meg's back.
Yeah. Welcome to trying to record a podcast ever in this house.
Pretty much.
Speaking of, did you mention your podcast when you introduced yourself?
Yes, I
did.
did.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a moment when you were talking. I was like, wait. Does it make sense? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yes, we're both doing the podcast thing. It's always nice to have a built-in podcaster here in case I ever need a last-minute guest, which is why we're here. Yeah. So great. Let's start with one question. I thought I had one for you again, and I forgot what it was. So we'll start with the Twitters. A few of you on the Twitters responded to my desperate call for questions for this episode. And we'll start with friend of the show, Dave. The name of your podcast is not the same anymore as it was when I was on your show. It used to be Destination Hoth. It's not anymore. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but you're great. We will have you on the show at some point if you're listening. You have a question for us, which is, it's not necessarily, Jesus Christ, here we go. While it's not necessary to be a fan of Star Wars, do you feel those who read the novels have a more thorough understanding of overall story? I think so. I think because you're correct, you do not need to read the books to be a Star Wars fan, and you do not need to read the books to understand Star Wars. Like, everything should be relatively independent of each other in terms of, like, being able to understand overall things. I think the benefit of reading the Star Wars books or reading certain Star Wars books is you do have a deeper appreciation for certain moments, certain characters, certain little things here and there. I think a better understanding, I think you're able to appreciate little moments more, because the books are very good at taking, like, recontextualizing, like, certain moments. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is a very me situation, which is I'm getting hung up on the word understanding, and about the extent to which I agree with that or not. I mean, the thing about Star Wars, and I talk about this every so often on my own show, is that it's this form of iterative storytelling. It's got this structure where every story builds on the story or stories that came before it. Whether you're talking about the movies, you're talking about the television shows, or you're talking about the books and the comics. I think, yeah, again, you can watch, particularly if let's just talk about the movies. The Skywalker Saga movies plus Rogue One plus Solo, A Star Wars Story. Again, those are all fairly contained stories. I mean, shoot, the original trilogy is a fairly contained story. You do not need the prequels at all in order to watch the original trilogy beginning to end. Those three movies give you everything that you need. So then would we say, well, the prequels give us a better understanding of the original trilogy? On some level, you could say, sure, yes. But also the kind of iterative quality means that the stories that come before it sort of stand on their own. So it's not as though they're dependent in the same way that, say, if you look at a franchise that Star Wars gets compared to often, which is Marvel, the MCU. Those stories are very linear. Yeah. So in that way, it's like, do you need to watch Guardians of the Galaxy to understand Infinity War? Yes, you do. You legitimately don't know who these people are in space.
Right.
And what is happening if you do not watch that movie. Do you need The Phantom Menace to understand A New Hope? The answer is no, you don't. Yeah. So I would say what you get from reading the books is much like what you said, which is you get the, you use the word recontextualizing, which I always like, and is also particularly a word that I prefer to, for example, to retcon, which is a word I don't like, which is that, like, the stories don't retcon, they recontextualize. Yep. So I think you get a kind of deeper level of both character backgrounds and motivations and where they're coming from. So I do think you get that. Definitely. You get a deeper story. You get more complex stories. I don't know that you necessarily get a greater understanding, again, just because of the way that Star Wars storytelling has been structured, really going all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. I really think if you've seen a Star Wars, you understand the overall story of Star Wars. I think the beauty of all these stories in the various mediums in which they're told is that every Star Wars story has something about it that makes it a Star Wars story. So, like, if you've seen one, you kind of get it, right? If we're talking about just, like, understanding Star Wars as what Star Wars is, which is usually something about hope or, found family or whatever you want to whatever Star Wars means to you, really. Is there like a... Can you think of off the top of your head, like a book or a comic or something that you've read that's really made you like appreciate a moment more, like in something that's come before it?
Oh, there are definitely examples of that. Now I'm going to have to try to pull one off the top of my head immediately.
I got to think of one too. I think a lot, like, this is not as specific of an answer to my own question, but I think a lot of the Queen's trilogy really made me think about Anakin and Padme's relationship a lot differently.
Yes.
In a good way. Thank you, Izzy, for all the background noise.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example, and I think that's an example that I would pick for me as well of, getting a lot more of Padme's side of the story, and then in particular, the last installment, Queen's Hope, in terms of what it does in looking at Padme's side of the marriage. Another more recent example that would come from the top of my head is Shadow of the Sith. And that is a book that adds a lot of lore to a lot of the things that we get in Rise of Skywalker, particularly around all the weird Sith stuff that happens on Exegol. So that is a book that, when you read that and then you go watch Rise of Skywalker afterwards, you definitely gain a greater appreciation for what's for what that movie's doing.
Izzy, stop. Izzy, stop. I think, while we're working on, do you not know where the zap collar is? Or the remote. God. It works the same with... it's the same kind of thing with, like, any stories that build on what have come before. Like, as I was trying to think of something, I thought of the Kenobi show and, like, how I still haven't watched A New Hope since then. But, like, having seen that and, like, seeing Obi-Wan and Leia's relationship and how it develops in that show, like, it's going to change the way I watch A New Hope forever. And I really like that. I think I always like to say that, books and, like, I guess other stories too, but, like, books and comics are really supplementary to like the material that you get on the screen. So a show or a movie, like, you can read them and you can get a lot out of them. You can have a deeper appreciation for Star Wars. I think, again, understanding what it's all about. I think if you really pay attention and you really take from it what you need it to mean to you in the moment, then, like, you know what Star Wars is. If you ask someone what does Star Wars mean, like, you're going to get slightly different answers because it's all dependent on the person and their own experiences, but, like, it all comes down to the same themes, the same ideas, because that's the point. That's what Star Wars is all about. That's a really good question. I really enjoyed that one. Right. Oh God, this question. I read this question earlier, and I was like, "How dare you?" Favorite secondary character in a lead character book and why? So, example. Ahsoka is the lead, but Kaden is the secondary character.
Okay.
So favorite secondary character in a book that is about somebody else.
All right.
Man, there's so many good ones. Like, here's an interesting question. Like, in the story of, let's use Phasma as an example. If you haven't listened to that particular episode of A Large Review of the Force, a Star Wars podcast, it's particularly great, and I'm not biased at all in saying that. So in Phasma, are Cardinal and Vi secondary characters? Or are they not secondary characters, but also not main characters?
Oh, Christ.
Because there's so many layers to the story. Yeah. It is Phasma, a book about Phasma, but the story is not told from Phasma's perspective. So it's about her, but who's the main character? My brain hurts. I'm going to say that, I don't even have an answer. I would say, I don't know. If we were to say that Cardinal and Vi were secondary characters, I think Cardinal has to be my favorite in that book. Overall, I can think. Oh. Yeah, that's definitely in my top. But like listen, there are a lot of Star Wars books. And having read a lot of them, there are a lot of characters to choose from.
All right, here, I'll give my pick while you think of yours.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go with my first instinct pick, pretty much the first name that came to mind, and I'm going to go with Eli Vanto.
Oh my God. That is such a good character. It's been so long since I read those Thrawn books.
Yeah.
So it's the first canon Thrawn trilogy. That's not the Legends one. That's not the most recent one that came out. There's so much Thrawn. There's so much Thrawn. I miss him. We need him in more stories.
Yeah.
Like, we need, like... I would take, like, a whole book. Like, just... Give me, like, what he's doing. Like, I don't know. Like, what happens to him after Thrawn? You know, no spoilers for Rebels, but, like, what happens to him after that, you know?
Right. Yeah, I really love their dynamic. I love the kind of... the Sherlock Holmes, John Watson of it all, where he's kind of the straight guy to Thrawn. So yeah, for that reason, I'm going to go Eli Vanto.
Oh, so good. I haven't thought about him in a while. Should reread those books. We don't have the audiobooks for those, do we?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, God. Great. I don't know if this is cheating or not, but Holdo in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which you have not read.
No.
Fantastic. That might have to be my pick. And I won't say why in too much detail, but like in order to fully really appreciate her character in The Last Jedi, you really it's beneficial to read that book and understand like where she's coming from and her relationship with Leia. It's great. If you haven't read that book, do it. Especially if you're a Holdo fan but don't know a lot about her because she's barely in any stories and it's a tragedy. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but is there like do you have like a dream Star Wars book, like a Star Wars book that doesn't exist that you would be like all over if it was announced?
I think you know my answer to this.
Okay. Excluding a book all about Grievous, because like everyone on the internet knows that that's your answer. That's not fair.
Okay, fine.
If it's not Grievous and it's not Vader.
All right. No, I wouldn't want a Vader novel. No, we're okay. There's more comics than I will ever catch up on under the Vader.
Thank you for being on the side of please don't give us another Vader comic. Like, listen, the Vader comics are great. I have nothing bad to say about any of them. There are so many characters that could be introduced to so many more people through comics, and Vader does not need to be another one. We've gotten 2015, we had a 2017, 2016, and now a 2020. Don't need more, and he's just appeared in other things too. It's, you know, everyone knows who Vader is. We need some more characters to have the spotlight.
But okay, yeah. So if I can't get my top choice, which is the General Grievous dream novel, I think another pick for me. Okay, no, I have my answer.
This is a podcast.
Yes. Sorry, people. You see, this is all real time. We haven't seen the questions in advance, or particularly I haven't seen the questions in advance. Okay, I already have my answer, because this is actually something that I talked about with Eli on our Shadow of the Sith episode, which is some sort of Rise of Snoke story. I think that is my dream. Because we were both talking about how after having read What He Did in Shadow of the Sith, how we want Adam Christopher to be the guy that tells that story, or at least to tell the Snoke story. So yeah, I would say that is my dream novel, if I can't get my Grievous novel, is what's Snoke's deal? I mean, we know, of course, the beginning part of the I made Snoke, and he's the test tube baby and all that.
Oh, God.
But then how does he go from that to getting together all the Imperial remnants, taking control, becoming as powerful with the dark side as he is, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I want that story.
Yeah, because even in the Rise of Kylo Ren novel, or not novel, Jesus, comic, I think I'm thinking about the right one. We get a little bit of Snoke Ben Solo interaction, but like it still doesn't tell you a lot about like what he's really doing and like where he's really going and where he's been before that. That'd be great. I have to answer my own question, don't I? Well, okay. It's also I can't let this be my answer because I did it to you, which is the internet already knows that I desperately need the young Bo-Katan and Satine coming of age novel about everything. I need it. Everyone wants the Satine and Obi-Wan Year on the Run book, which would also be great. But also I will let myself answer because I shot down your Grievous, even though a Grievous novel would be really interesting because in canon we don't have a lot outside of the one movie he's in, which is not great for you especially.
Yes.
It bothers you all the time. It's just
correct,
you're awake
it
at
does.
night thinking about how much you just wish that you could have more stories.
Yep.
I know.
Thrawn has 9 books. Give me one Grievous book.
They have to revisit that at some point. I mean, like, they've been in the Clone Wars era a lot this year.
Yeah.
So, like, why not? He appeared very briefly in the Stories of Jedi and Sith book. It wasn't, like, all about him, but he was there. It was great. I still haven't answered.
No, you have not.
I still haven't answered my own question. It's really hard. We've gotten a lot of Leia. I don't know if we need a ton more Leia. Sorry, Leia stands. Like there has to be a point where you got to give somebody else the room. This is not great content because I can't think of an answer. We've gotten a lot of Kira in comics recently. Like she basically has her own like trilogy now of comics, or she will by the end of this year, which is great. I wouldn't mind because we do have Most Wanted, one of the most underrated Star Wars books that exists. I wouldn't mind a novel that is more about her. I have not, full disclosure, I have not read all of those comics, so I don't know how much it goes into her past. But I think that'd be really cool, and that's going to be my answer for now. I'm sure I'll come up with more. But I really like that character, and yes, I know I need to read all of the comics. There are a lot of comics I'm very behind. That's gonna really hurt me in a future question we're gonna get to. Well, I'm thinking about it because I thought of this question while we were thinking about our answers. Is there an author that hasn't written a Star Wars book yet that you'd be like, oh my god, I can't believe they're writing a Star Wars book? Like we really haven't talked a lot about like our favorite authors like outside of.
No, we have not. Oh, I don't know if I have an answer off the top of my head.
No. I don't know if I do either. Because, like, honestly, like, some of my favorite authors already have. And a lot of authors I've discovered through Star Wars and then gone on to read their other stuff, which is always fun. Hi, would you like to say something on the podcast? Would you like to say something? How about you? Do you have a favorite author that you like to write a Star Wars book? What do you think? Yeah. Is there a repeat author that you're like, besides Adam Christopher, because you already mentioned him, that you'd like to see write another
Okay, so I can't give the Adam Christopher answer.
Yeah. Although that would be great, and I hope that there will be more from him because Shadow of the Sith is great.
It sure is.
You haven't listened to that episode of Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Let's see, a Star Wars author who has already done a book that I would like to see them do another book.
I think we need Christy Golden to do more.
All right, yeah.
It's been a while.
That's a good pick. I like that. Yeah. Because does she only have Dark Disciple to her name?
It's Dark Disciple and the second Battlefront book.
Okay.
The one with Iden and company. Have you read that one?
I have not, no.
You can, by the way, read those books out of order, because that's what I did. They're different stories, though. They're not connected they're based on the games, but they're not like connected as in like you need to read the first one before you read the second one. Yeah, I read the book before I started playing the story for that game, and guess what? I never finished it because that's my relationship with video games.
Okay, I have an answer that I just came up with, and I'm sure I could think of another answer or another couple of names. Let's get Matt Stover back into canon.
Yeah, he's on Twitter. He's like hanging out. I mean, there are a lot of good Star Wars books from him besides the Revenge of the Sith novelization. Mm-hmm. However, it's one of the most unique Star Wars books that exists, and I say that because it's a good thing. I really read it or listen to it. Doesn't matter. It's pretty great. Yeah. Oh, that would be good. I don't know. I don't know if he's still writing.
I don't know.
But hey, if you're listening.
Friend of the show, Matt Stover.
Oh, what if though? Oh, that would be great. I'd love to see what he would do with he's got to write like Anakin again, man. Or another Anakin and Obi-Wan. Like, I know we've talked a lot about like, hey, these characters don't need more novels, but like, there's just something about the Anakin Obi-Wan relationship, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, we've had this conversation before. There's a lot of storytelling in that 10 years in between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones that really hasn't been done in canon at all. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, if you wanted to bring him back and have him tell an Anakin Obi-Wan story that was, in the middle of that period, because we already have Mike Chen's Brotherhood, which is the perfect... Yep. It is the perfect Obi-Wan Anakin story that is post-Attack of the Clones. But, yeah, to get that more of Padawan Anakin, I think he could be a good idea to do that. You know, it would be, like, phenomenal and wild and possibly the greatest thing that's ever happened. What if Matt Stover came back and he's like, I'm going to write the novelization of the Kenobi show. Jesus. Because you get the Anakin and Obi-Wan, kind of. But you get, like, all the other stuff that... I mean, like, I know we don't need that. I know the show exists, and it should be watched. But, like, just give me all the books. Oh, my God. All right, let's consult Twitter again for another question. From Jacob, who is going to be on the show at some point to talk about comics, because he's the greatest Star Wars comics expert that I know, and I need him because I don't know enough about comics. There's a reason that one of our recent episodes is called "Getting Started with Star Wars Books" and didn't mention comics almost at all because I need more of an expert than me. So he'll be on the show at some point. Friend of the show, you know. He sends me all the Funkos when they come out, so I make sure that I spend all my money. It's great. What do you think is one YA and one middle grade novel that doesn't get the respect it deserves due to the label? And for an extra challenge, no picking High Republic books. So we can start with YA, I guess. I think I know your answer to this one. Yeah, let's do a little bit of Newlywed Game. What's my answer to the YA one? A Crash of Fate, man. It's A Crash of Fate. All right, listen, people. A Crash of Fate by Zoraida Cordova is a 9 out of 10 Star Wars book, and no one talks about it. It is a sweet, wonderful love story that takes place between these two kids. The whole story takes place over 24 hours. It is this completely insular little hermetic story, which everybody who goes on Star Wars online talks about. Whoa, we want stories separated from the Skywalker saga. Here is your wonderful little story that is completely disconnected from the Skywalker saga. It is phenomenally written. No one talks about it. It is completely slept on, and it is an amazing book.
It falls prey to the fact that it takes place on Batuu around Galaxy's Edge. It's part of that whole, like, you could call it a marketing thing, along with Black Spire. It's not what you would expect. It doesn't push Galaxy's Edge on you. It doesn't push Batuu on you. It doesn't push Disney on you. It's a beautiful story that just happens to take place on that planet. And I forget it exists sometimes. I see it on my shelf and I'm like, man, nobody talks about this book. It's not fair. It's not fair.
It's absolutely not. It would be in so many people's top 10 or even top 5 lists if it got more recognition.
It's like, if you like Lost Stars, particularly for like the romance element or like the friends to whatever you want to call it element, like, in a way, it's very similar. And it's very, very good. I need to reread that. I say that about every book that is brought to my attention again. I don't have time to reread things, but like, I wish. That is a good one. Do you know my answer to this question?
Let's see. YA. I'm going to say Ahsoka?
Force Collector, man. Okay, listen.
Another book I love, which I love that answer.
You do? We've never talked about this.
I talked about this in it was like episode 4 of the show or something. I talked about Force Collector.
Oh, it's so good. It's like one of my favorite books of the last few years.
It's really good.
It's so good. It's like, how would you describe it? It's like, basically this kid who has no knowledge of the Skywalker saga, basically, I won't spoil anything because it's fun, discovers the Skywalker saga but doesn't have any context of what is happening. And then realizes that, like, oh, someone needs to be like writing all this stuff down.
Yeah,
it's so much more than that, but it's great.
Yeah, it's a really, really good book. Yeah, where as Meg said, like this main character is kind of learning about these massive events that have happened in the galaxy, and he's doing it through pretty much. I mean, I don't want to say it's Star Wars meets Indiana Jones because it's not quite that, but it does have that element of archaeology. He's tracking down these objects, and he's kind of learning about the galactic past and all these big events and putting it together. And so, yeah, it's a really good book. It's a one that I particularly like, and as I talked about in an early episode of my show where I talked about Star Wars and history, and like it's someone who has, because I have a background in history, that's what I went to school for. It's this character in Star Wars who's pretty much excavating Star Wars history and is like trying to get all of this like pretty much like primary source information from all these things about like trying to learn like, oh well, I got this information, so I think this is what happened, but then I learned this other thing and it contradicts what I thought before, so now I got to change what I thought before. Like, it's really good. It's like him pretty much, yeah, as Meg said, he's writing and rewriting the history of the galaxy as he's getting more stuff and finding out more information. It's really good.
I have not seen Indiana Jones. Any of them.
It's on the it was already on the list anyway. So, because I kind of assumed you hadn't seen Indiana Jones.
You assumed you didn't even ask. What's the one you were surprised I'd seen? Because I think you either had it on there or you're like, oh, you've seen that. I think it was The Breakfast Club. Was it?
No, I don't think it was that.
Was it not? I don't know. There was one you were like, oh, I can't believe you've seen that. Oh, I think it was Forrest Gump.
Yes, it was Forrest Gump. Yeah, that I was surprised you'd seen Forrest Gump.
I just like watched it alone one day and I was like, I need a hug. Everything's fine. Oh. I think we need more books kind of like that, where it's like you have someone who really doesn't know the context of any of these events, only the result of them because it's the time that you're living in. We need like that, but like post Rise of Skywalker, only for someone to be like, what happened? You know? It's one thing that I really like about the Skywalker Family at War book, because it's like, it's a biography of the Skywalker saga in universe, but it's basically just like going through like all the events that happen. It's great. It's beautiful. Have you read that one?
I have not.
Oh,
I've heard many good things about it, but I've not read it.
It is very good. Highly recommend. We'll talk about that one at some point, because it's like I don't exactly know where to put it on my shelf, because it is kind of a reference book, but it's not, because it doesn't read like one. It reads like a, you know, like a traditional like biography, like a book.
Right.
But it's like, but is it a reference book because it's written as if the person writing it is someone in the Star Wars universe writing all the events down. It's just, I don't know where to put it. So it's just, I think it's in my reference books now, but yeah, it's very, very good. All right. We're going to go to Instagram for some questions. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. I haven't actually looked at all of them.
All right.
Okay, this is a two-part question, and the first part is favorite High Republic book.
Oh, we didn't answer the middle grade
Part
of Jacob's question.
Oh, no, Jacob,
I don't actually
sorry.
know. I don't really have an answer because all the middle grade books that I've read are High Republic.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Of Star Wars. So, yeah.
Oh, middle grade. I'm inclined to say all the High Republic middle grade books, because like there are people who don't know they exist. Like, oh, the High Republic is like 3 books or 6 books. I'm like, no, you're forgetting about the middle grade books, because honestly, middle grade is just a label. Like, it does. I think those stories are great. A Test of Courage. I always forget the name of that book for some reason. I don't know what it is. That's a fantastic book, and it's like it's almost my favorite introduction to the High Republic. I can't remember. No, I don't think I read that one before Light of the Jedi. But yeah, there are a lot of, and there are a bunch of different ones. So I'm not going to name a specific one, but there was like a series of middle grade books that came out in the lead up to The Force Awakens, and they're all from like different like characters' perspectives. So there's one for like Finn. There's they did it with The Last Jedi too. Why didn't they do it with The Rise of Skywalker? I don't know. I think they did like one, so they didn't do a whole like collection. But there's one for Leia. I think Han might have one. Rose has one. That's a really good one. They're fantastic books, and I feel like if it's just like a Saturday and you're looking for a short or a shorter read, you're gonna get through it pretty fast. It has the same message as Star Wars, but it's just for a younger audience. Middle grade books. There's honestly some of my favorites, because you don't spend a lot of time with them, but they stick with you. Yeah. Favorite High Republic book.
Favorite High Republic book?
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to go with... Yeah, because I'm looking at some of them now here.
Oh, yeah.
Rising Storm.
Oh, that's a good one. Is that the one you listened to when you were driving?
Yeah, when I went on the road trip to the wedding. Yeah. I usually like my philosophy on favorites, like particularly within Star Wars, but I think that's even more general, is I tend to think about, okay, which is the one that's stuck with me the most, and which is the one that my brain goes back to, and that's kind of how I think about favorites a lot.
Okay, yeah.
And when it comes to the High Republic books, my answer to that question, and therefore my favorite, is The Rising Storm.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. For me, like, a favorite book is one I actually want to take the time to go back and reread. So, like, if I enjoyed it so much the first time that I want to re-experience it, that's kind of what a favorite means to me. Like, I've read Ahsoka 3 times. Do I have time to read Ahsoka 3 times? No. I still have not listened to it. I'm sorry. I understand. Like, I know why I need to listen to it. It's been explained to me. I just it's there. It's just sitting in our Audible waiting for me. I'm sorry. I'll get through it pretty fast. It won't take very long.
Exactly.
Oh, favorite High Republic book. Oh, you know what? I thought I had my answer, and I think I'm going to change it. I really think it might be The Fallen Star for me. So
All right.
because this is so far, because the High Republic is not over yet. We're getting more starting next month, October. Oh my god. It feels like it's been a long time. When was the last time we got a High Republic book? March?
Wasn't it Fallen Star?
Technically it was Midnight Horizon.
Oh, Midnight Horizon. That's right. Yeah. So that would have been, technically March. Some of it got released early, or at least the audiobook got released early.
Right.
So yeah, it would have been that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like I know that The Fallen Star is tragic. Like we all knew the tragedy, some of the tragedies that would occur. We did not know of some of the others. It kind of really felt like an Avengers Endgame to me, where like it was everyone kind of having to come together and like, because you get all the characters from the different stories that are kind of like coming together and trying to like figure everything out and like do their part to save who and what they can. There is one thing about that book that bothered me, and it was the fake out death, which I won't spoil, but like there's something about it I didn't love. I'm not upset that character's alive. Don't get me wrong. I'm not always a fan of that.
I thought that was delightful. It took me a second to remember, but that's wonderful. Come on.
Again, I'm happy they're alive, but like that's like don't mess with me like that. Like I wasn't in the mood. Like I was already upset. Oh, like I know. But like I think I think the reason it's my favorite so far is it made me really look forward to the next phase and the next wave of books that we're gonna get. Previously, like in other High Republic stories, it's like you get that feeling, but I think it was the strongest for me after that book because it was such a big conclusion. I'm very, very excited for more. We're going to be talking about what's coming up next in the High Republic fairly soon. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do that. Are we going to do a full recap? That's a lot. I'm not sure. We'll see. But yeah, and the second part to this question is favorite High Republic character. I don't know if I know. Do I know your answer to this? I'm not sure.
I don't know. Take a guess. See if you're right or not.
I don't know. We've not like talked extensively about the High Republic.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so you wouldn't necessarily know. For me, my favorite High Republic character is also a character who I would say is probably within my top 5 of Jedi, just in canon overall. The character who every time he has popped up in whatever story he's been in, or you get a chapter where we're focused on his slice of the story, I am just utterly delighted and I love every moment. Yes, I'm referring to one Bel Zettifar.
Oh.
I love Bel Zettifar.
I think I did know that.
He is just fantastic. He's such a well-written character, and he's just such a... I don't know any other adjective, but like pure character.
Yes.
You just get that he has that kind of youthful Padawan exuberance, but then of course he goes in phase 1 through that arc of the traditional Star Wars story of growing up and losing the mentor, and okay, that was maybe slightly a spoiler, but that's okay. And yeah, having to confront the realities of the galaxy. And yeah, having to grow up really, really fast, which is such a common experience among Star Wars protagonists. Yeah. But yeah, I love Bel Zettifar. He's just delightful.
For the record, it is very hard to talk about Star Wars books sometimes because you want to talk about them, and sometimes you end up maybe spoiling them. But like, it's hard not to. And like, I never want to alienate anyone. Like, you should be able to listen to the show and like know whether or not you're going to get a spoiler. Listen, it's hard. There are a lot of books. I don't know who's read what. I can't keep track of that. So like, we're always doing our best. And of course, if we're ever actually discussing a book in depth, the word spoiler will be all over everything. So you'll know. We're trying. Do you know who my favorite High Republic character is? Think really, really hard about it. Think of some things I may have done in my past as an online content creator. Just think of some certain. I'm not joking. This is actually my favorite High Republic character. Am I giving you any hints? A lot of people joke about this being their favorite character, but I'm not joking.
Geode?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Every time he's there, I am just the happiest I've ever been reading a book. I mean, look, this character is everything I want in a Star Wars character. He is selfless. He doesn't say much, you know what? Sometimes I can relate to that. My favorite thing about Into the Dark is you really honestly don't know if he's actually a rock or not. Like, is he? You don't know, and that's the whole point. And of course, his character develops and he is.
Yes, Geode, there are so many, again, in respecting back to what you were talking about a few minutes ago of spoilers, I will not talk about specific Geode moments, particularly in Fallen Star, which I think has some of the best Geode moments, that book. But yeah, he is just a wonderful character, and just particularly how he plays off other characters.
Yes.
And yeah, the way that Claudia writes him as... Yeah, like he's written almost like any other character, but then the punchline is that he's a rock. But everyone engaged, and he's talked about as if he is an organic being.
This is not a spoiler because it doesn't like matter to the story, but when he shows up in the Fallen Star,
it's so good.
I just lost it.
Because it's one of those moments where, I mean, this was at least my experience of it. Where it was one of the situations where I was having the realization at the same time as the character.
Yeah. And
it was so great. So yeah. Yes, yeah. There's so many wonderful, wonderful moments with Geode.
God, I love that we know what he looks like now too. Like there's art. It's great. Didn't someone dressed up as Geode at Celebration?
Yes.
Right? There is one way to make yourself popular at Star Wars Celebration 2022, and that is to dress up as Geode. Oh my god! I need more of him, but also I need him to survive. It's kind of like Bells out of Fire. It's like you really can't go that far. That's not acceptable, you know.
Yeah.
Oh. All right, let's find another question. Izzy, can you stop being the epitome of chaos right now? There you go. You want one of these? No, you just want a pet. That's not a question. Oh dear.
Oh no.
Oh wait, I think I can draw a question out of this.
Okay. Is this the infamous, this is more of a comment than a question? It is
literally... The end is, sorry, not really a question, more a wish.
All right.
Okay, you know what? I'll read it and we'll see what we can do with this.
Okay.
Question: how rad would a series of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Dooku and Rail 2 novels by Claudia Gray be? Same goes for some more post-ROTJ, post-Mando Luke Skywalker adventures by Adam Christopher. We kind of already talked about this. Okay, here's a question I will take off of that, which is, our dog is just so happy to be alive right now.
Yes.
She's just so happy to be engaged with all of the objects in the living room she's not supposed to touch. So we have the High Republic, which is in canon the farthest back, technically, that we've gone in terms of storytelling. And you have the prequels, which are, the prequels.
Correct.
It's been a long day. So we don't have storytelling in canon, really, significantly in between those two things. The Acolyte's going to change that. When is that going to happen? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on release dates because you can't, even if it's an officially announced release date, it's not actually their release date. But what have we learned? What have we learned from the past two shows? Is there a kind of story that you'd like to see in that in-between time that we haven't gotten yet? Like, in between, like, this is the High Republic, and this is where the Republic is, as we know it in the prequels. I kind of want to know more. Like, I need more, like, kind of like Darth Plagueis time, where, like, Palpatine's, like, starting to build up his, I don't know, his life as a Sith, but he's not, like, Palpatine as we know him yet. I know that we don't need really more backstory on Palpatine. Like, he's one of those villains where, like, he's kind of evil just to be evil, and, like, there's not necessarily much more to it than that. I wouldn't mind some more of that, though, maybe.
Yeah, I think my answer to that would be, and I think the answer is probably what the Acolyte itself is going to eventually satisfy, which is what are the Sith up to in this time and what's going on there. I mean, I would love to see, for example, 'cause this is a world, a planet from the sequel trilogy that I really love, which is I love Exegol a lot. Like, I would love to see, like, what's happening there in this time period, right? Hundreds of years prior to the main Skywalker saga. Yeah, that's pretty much my answer. Is what are the Sith up to as all of these greater events are taking place?
Do you have, because I'm not sure if you do, I don't think, do you have feelings about the Old Republic time period of storytelling being explored in canon?
I do not really. And the part that is just a function of I don't have a lot of experience with the Old Republic. Yeah. At the time this is recording, I am finishing up listening to the Legends Revan novel. Oh. And that is pretty much my first foray into Old Republic content. I never played KOTOR, didn't read any other books. So, yeah, so this is a part of Star Wars history, a part of Star Wars content in general, about which I know very, very little.
It's basically because the reason I would be interested, not in remakes of the Old Republic as it was, I would like new things, but I would like the same concept, which is it's thousands of years before the Phantom Menace, as opposed to like the High Republic being a couple hundred. And a lot of it is like, the Sith when there's still a bunch of them before the Rule of Two is really kicked in. There's just like a bunch of Sith running around. But also like there's a lot of like the Mandalorians are fighting all these wars, and like you get more of like, I really enjoyed that. This is surprising to no one, which is like you get a lot more of Mandalorian lore like way back farther than what you get before. It's really just like Star Wars, but just like older, which is why it's called the Old Republic. I think it'd be really interesting at some point to go back that far. If you really think about it, I think in Star Wars, they have to at some point, because at some point you're going to need a new era. Like, they're doing the High Republic, and that's great. But, like, people love prequels. People love when you go back way farther than you need to sometimes.
I mean, on the subject of not the High Republic, but the Old Republic, rather, that is making me realize that I am surprised that your answer for the what's the novel you want wasn't a Darksaber heist novel.
Oh, God, I forgot. Okay, that would also be great, because listen, the Darksaber was chilling in that Jedi Temple for how long? They came in and they took it, and now it's this whole thing. But, like, what was that story? Like, how did they decide, you know what we're going to do, guys? You know what we're going to do with all these resources and all these people and all? We're going to go steal the Darksaber.
Yeah. Or even just connected to that Atar Vizsla story.
Oh my God. You know, that would be great. And that would be a great way to go back farther. You know what we need that we haven't gotten enough of in books is more Mandalorian stuff. And, like, I'm not just talking about, like, the Mandalorian, like, the show. I mean, like, Mandalorians in general. Like, you get a lot more of that in Legends. I suppose because they had more time to build it out, and canon has only technically existed for like a decade at this point. About we need more of it, because as someone who's trying to write a full history of Mandalorians, it's really hard because you don't have a lot in canon to go off of, and there's a lot in Legends, but like it's Legends, so like you don't know. So listen, Dave Filoni, if you could just like, sit down with the story group and like let them know some stuff, and then like get a writer on that. That'd be great. Anything related to the Darksaber. If a Darksaber is mentioned on one page of a book, listen, I'm not gonna be a person. It's very important. It's very important to me. Didn't even think about that for that answer to that question. I've bumped your knee so many times. We are so right. Close.
Yeah,
we are so close. What do you think? You got any? Can you think of any
other questions?
I
don't know. Have you run out of questions?
I have officially run out of questions. Because the weird thing about Twitter is sometimes like you post a really dumb tweet and you get all these responses you never asked for. And then when you specifically ask for responses, no one responds. I don't know what it is. It's me. It's probably me. Do you have a preference between like shorter Star Wars books and long boys? Because Shadow of the Sith is so long.
Very long, yeah. Oh, do I have a preference? I'm not sure I do. No. It's just a function of the story. I mean, some of my favorite Star Wars books do happen to be pretty long ones. You mentioned Shadow of the Sith. Another one is James Luceno's Darth Plagueis. Oh, another very long book.
That book is so long.
So deeply long and very dense, as is per custom for James Luceno. Yeah. But length, not really. No, it's the preference comes down to things like story, era, characters, etc.
Well, I'm really hoping that at some point you either get that Grievous novel or you just write it, because there would be no better person to write a novel all about Grievous than the person who is sitting next to me literally wearing a
Please
Grievous.
Let me do it. Oh, yes, I am wearing my Grievous shirt.
I just noticed you wearing your
Grievous shirt. Yes, Star Wars, please let me write the Grievous novel.
Listen, give him the Grievous novel, and I'll just be upstairs writing the, why are Bo-Katan and Satine sisters but not friends? What happened? We need to know. Would that make us like the Star Wars power couple if we both wrote Star Wars novels?
Yes, it would.
Oh, I that is a phrase I never thought would come out of my mouth, and it just did. This has been just about as chaotic as I imagined it would have been. Do you want to tell the people more about your show and where to find it and what you're doing on the Star Wars internet?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I host a Star Wars podcast called A Larger View of the Force. It is a show that is about the connections that we can make to Star Wars, both in universe and then also to ourselves at a kind of personal level, and then also to the galaxy in which we live. So, yeah, go check it out. It is available pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you are listening to this. Odds are you can probably find my show. And you can also find the show on Twitter if you want to follow me for my assorted posts that I make. Sometimes Grievous related, oftentimes Grievous related. Yeah, you can follow the show on Twitter at A Larger View Pod.
Yeah, there are times where I am on Twitter and I see a post about Grievous, and before I even look at who it's from, it's yours. Yeah, this has been great, and when it's time, I'm not gonna tell you when, listeners, but when it's time to talk about Lost Stars, this man will be back. So
hell yeah.
Look forward to that. Thank you so much for being here on my show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Izzy, you want to say goodbye? Okay.